This is an artificially aware original production.
It's a funny thing when you find a book that practically jumps off the shelf and punches you in the face. Picture this. I was scrolling through an ocean of digital noise, the usual ocean of "you must read this" recommendations that litter every corner of the web, when suddenly, one book practically blinked at me in neon. Nonobvious Thinking by Rohit, Bhargava, and DuPont. The title was so unassuming, it almost dared me to dismiss it. I was skeptical, and yet there it was, promising something beyond the typical self-help handbook on thinking outside the box. It offered a method, a non-obvious way to see what others miss, to find opportunities hiding in plain sight. Naturally, my curiosity dragged me in. The book's premise? That by engaging in deliberate, disciplined thinking, yes, thinking beyond what our minds instinctively settle on, we could master a superpower, the ability to spot what others overlook. Suddenly, that promise of spotting what the world misses didn't seem like a gimmick. It felt like a revelation. This audacious claim led me to dig into the minds behind the book. Rohit, Bhargava, and DuPont aren't just your average authors hoping to add a feather in their caps. Bhargava, an authority in trend prediction, has spent his career diving into the most unexamined corners of business, tech, and culture. He's not just an observer, he's a curator of the non-obvious, a talent that's taken him to stages worldwide and even classrooms at Georgetown University. Now, think about his co-author, DuPont. The guy is a venture capitalist with a resume that doesn't let up. A pioneer in tech-driven investments, he co-founded Yet2.com and Chartline, ventures that have not only survived but thrived by betting on unconventional ideas. These are people who have lived and breathed in the trenches of unconventional thinking and have built careers on the raw currency of fresh ideas. This isn't some abstract theory spun by a think tank. It's a methodology pieced together by two figures who've cut their teeth in the real world, and I was all in. The premise of the book is deceptively simple. The ability to see what others miss isn't a rare gift possessed by the lucky or the brilliant. It's a skill, one that can be learned, refined, and wielded with intention. Bhargava and DuPont argue that in a world speeding towards homogeneity, where every trending thought is echoed a million times over across social media, it's the ability to break free from that pattern, to see through the noise, that truly sets people apart. Now here's where they got me. This isn't just about ideas for the sake of ideas. No, they're handing out a toolkit for transformation, for spotting the hidden opportunities and small nuances that can change everything. Whether you're in your career, pursuing a personal project, or just trying to make sense of the daily grind, this framework promises to disrupt conventional thinking and elevate you from the stagnant swamp of everyday thought. And it isn't just wishful thinking. The book offers concrete methods to cultivate this skill, which it charmingly calls non-obvious thinking. This was a promise that didn't just hover in the abstract. It was a methodology waiting to be applied. The first story that blew my mind was about Dick Fosbury and his audacious high jump technique. Picture this guy. He's at the 1968 Olympics, lanky, awkward, and quite frankly out of place among his fellow athletes. The high jump back then was all about the scissors technique, a classic and predictable move. But Fosbury? He runs, he turns his back, and he flops over the bar, setting an Olympic record while the crowd tries to make sense of what just happened. This moment, this bizarre flop, didn't just get him the gold. It reinvented the sport. Today, every high jumper uses his method. Bhargava and DuPont point to this moment as the essence of non-obvious thinking. Fosbury ignored tradition and focused solely on clearing the bar, seeing a solution others missed simply by refusing to accept the norm. It wasn't innovation for innovation's sake, it was innovation that got results. This is the kind of perspective shift the book is priming us for. Not a new way of thinking, just to be different, but a new way that leads to measurable, often spectacular outcomes. So, how does one actually master this elusive skill of seeing the unseen? That's where SIFT comes in. Bhargava and DuPont lay it out like a roadmap: space, insight, focus, and twist. Each element opens a different door in the maze of our thought patterns. Space is about making room, clearing mental and physical clutter to allow fresh ideas to flourish. Insight pushes us to observe and ask questions more deeply, to unearth truths that lie buried beneath the surface. Focus challenges us to cut through distractions and zero in on what truly matters, rather than getting lost in endless possibilities. Finally, twist urges us to take the familiar and reimagine it, to flip conventions on their heads in search of something surprising. Together, these 4 steps form the scaffolding of non-obvious thinking, a structured yet flexible process designed to jolt us out of mental inertia. It sounds like the easiest thing in the world to create, but in reality, it's the thing we humans often guard most fiercely, even against ourselves. Bhargava and DuPont hammer home that making room for new ideas requires more than just clearing a desk or shutting off notifications. Real space is created in the mind through deliberate acts of both physical and mental decluttering. Marie Kondo hit a nerve worldwide by showing us that a tidy closet is somehow a tidy life, but that concept goes so much deeper. Imagine not just decluttering your apartment, but your brain. This book suggests that creating mental space often involves breaking from routine, maybe even turning a critical eye toward the rituals you cling to. Take Wim Hof, the Iceman, who's known for breaking records in extreme conditions. His technique: mastering his breath to control his mind and body. Slowing down and taking a moment to simply breathe might sound painfully simple, but it's an act of pure rebellion in an age where productivity is king. Creating space isn't about doing nothing. It's about intentionally inviting in the silence so ideas have room to grow. Then there's the barrier that stops many people from even hearing new ideas: the reflexive rejection, the pre-buttal. Imagine this. Someone's barely voiced a thought, and our minds are already on the counterattack, ready to dismiss, diminish, or correct what hasn't even fully formed. Bhargava and DuPont push back on this habit, urging us to embrace an open mind. Pre-buttals are like intellectual landmines, triggered before anything has a chance to grow. Instead, they recommend listening without leaping to conclusions or assumptions, a rare skill in an age of hot takes and snap judgments. They call it letting go of preconceived ideas, but honestly, it's deeper than that. It's about recognizing that each person, each moment, each idea has an unpredictable and untold story behind it. Dropping judgments doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It's about cultivating curiosity, letting ideas breathe before we decide to inhale them or blow them away. This approach is a radical invitation to allow ideas to surprise us, instead of forcing them into the mental boxes we've already constructed. In the frenetic rush of modern life, Bhargava and DuPont suggest the art of creating Oasis Moments, small respites that act as mental resets. These aren't elaborate vacations or spa days, but tiny pauses that bring a sense of calm amidst chaos. Picture yourself just stopping for 5 minutes in the middle of a whirlwind day, focusing on the sound of the wind, or maybe just the pattern of light and shadow on the floor. The world doesn't need to disappear for these moments to happen. It's about creating calm within it. The point is simple but powerful. You reset yourself, even briefly, and you begin to see your surroundings with fresh eyes. In a culture obsessed with constant action, an oasis moment feels almost countercultural. Yet the authors argue these moments are crucial for clearing the mental static that clutters our vision. By consciously stepping away from noise, even for a second, we regain a kind of clarity that would otherwise be swallowed whole by the day's distractions. Insight. Now there's a word that sounds grand, but Bhargava and DuPont redefine it as something utterly grounded. Insight isn't just brilliance struck like lightning, it's the result of a finely tuned habit of observation. The book leans on nunchi, a Korean concept that means reading a room, sensing the emotions and intentions that go unspoken. Imagine not just listening to what people say, but to what their bodies and subtle glances reveal. It's like developing an emotional sonar that lets you perceive undercurrents most people miss. The authors push this idea further, insisting that insights aren't gathered with our mouths or egos, but through keenly attuned observation. The next time you're in a meeting, in a conversation, or even in a crowded cafe, the real story isn't in the obvious chatter. It's in the silent cues, the body language, the fleeting expressions that tell the truth before words catch up. By cultivating this quiet skill, Bhargava and DuPont argue we can tap into a layer of understanding that evades those with louder, more rigid minds. The authors are adamant about this next point. If you want real insights, stop hunting for yes or no answers. They recommend asking for stories. Yes, stories. A direct question, did you like it, or was it a success, rarely gives you anything worth remembering. But ask someone to tell you the story behind an experience, and the floodgates open. By nudging conversations into the realm of storytelling, you're not just gathering information, you're collecting raw, emotional truths, layers of context that would otherwise slip through the cracks. Stories have this magical quality. They're expansive, and they pull you into the nooks and crannies of someone else's lived experience. It's a way of discovering hidden truths and unexpected wisdom. Bhargava and DuPont stress that storytelling isn't a gimmick. It's an ancient, near-sacred act that reveals worlds within worlds. The next time you're after the truth, remember, stories reveal what blunt answers conceal. Focus, as Bhargava and DuPont see it, is a kind of distillation process, a skill of stripping away all the fluff until you're left with the rarest essence of an idea. They compare it to the making of rose oil, where 10,000 petals yield a single drop of fragrance. Think about that for a second. All that beautiful material reduced to one concentrated result. In real life, focus means saying no to 1,000 minor distractions so you can reach the heart of what really matters. They introduce a deceptively simple tool called the 5 Whys, a technique invented by Sakichi Toyota, founder of Toyota. It's elementary but shockingly effective, asking why 5 times in a row to dig into the core of an issue. Say your project is delayed. Why? Because there was a misunderstanding. Why? Because the instructions were unclear. Why? And so on until you unearth the root cause. It's focus by way of simplicity, a laser-like approach that steers you away from easy answers and hones in on the real problem. In a world flooded with distractions, Toyota's method is a flashlight in a fog. To really focus, Bhargava and DuPont argue, you must strip away everything that doesn't serve the end goal, no matter how compelling it might seem on the surface. Now let's talk about a concept that'll make perfectionists squirm, the idea that good enough might actually be good enough. The authors lean on the work of psychologist Herbert Simon, who divided people into maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers aim for the absolute best, while satisficers settle for what meets the criteria without the endless chase for perfection. And here's the kicker: satisficers tend to be happier and more productive. The authors argue that knowing when to say "this will do" can be a game changer. You see, in the relentless pursuit of perfection, people often end up paralyzed, exhausted, or perpetually unsatisfied. A satisficer, by contrast, finds relief in embracing imperfection, channeling their energy into progress rather than stalling in pursuit of some mythical perfect. This isn't settling, it's optimizing. In fact, Bhargava and DuPont see this approach as essential to non-obvious thinking. Freeing yourself from the chains of perfection allows you to pivot, adjust, and explore unexpected paths without the weight of unrealistically high standards dragging you down. And then we get to twist, the final element of SIFT, where the real magic happens. Twist is where you take the familiar and flip it on its head, like James Dyson did with vacuum technology. Dyson looked at an industrial cyclone separator, a machine meant for collecting dust in factories, and saw the potential to revolutionize the household vacuum. It wasn't about inventing something from scratch. It was about creatively reinterpreting something that already existed. This, according to Bhargava and DuPont, is the essence of non-obvious thinking. Twist isn't just about being quirky or eccentric. It's about innovation that redefines how we use everyday tools. It's the difference between making incremental improvements and creating something genuinely disruptive. By twisting the perspective, you move from what's predictable to what's revelatory. Imagine looking at the mundane and spotting the hidden genius that lies within. Twist is the boldness to break norms, to reinterpret what everyone else sees as fixed. And that, Bhargava and DuPont argue, is where groundbreaking ideas live. Bhargava and DuPont dive even deeper with examples of what they call flip solutions and the search for option C. When the conventional path doesn't work, most people fall back on plan B. But the innovators? They look for option C. Take Taco Bell's audacious "think outside the bun" campaign. Instead of trying to compete with burger joints, Taco Bell defined itself by what it wasn't. By positioning itself as the anti-burger fast food chain, it carved out a unique identity that wasn't even on the radar for competitors. The Hans Brinker budget hostel did something similar, marketing itself as the worst hotel in the world to attract budget-conscious travelers looking for humor and honesty. This kind of thinking is about creating your own lane, finding the perspective that no one else is even considering. Bhargava and DuPont argue that the value of these flips isn't just novelty. It's in finding the edge where others have stopped exploring, discovering value by straying far from the beaten path. Non-obvious thinking brings it all together with the SIFT framework, a roadmap not just for creative problem solving, but for seeing the world in vivid new colors. Space, insight, focus, and twist aren't just steps. They're lenses that allow you to see dimensions hidden in plain sight. Bhargava and DuPont's vision of non-obvious thinking isn't some abstract concept to daydream about. It's a practical skill set that, when mastered, could redefine how you approach life, work, and every challenge in between. With SIFT, you aren't just finding new answers, you're discovering new questions. This book dares you to move beyond autopilot thinking, to break free from comfortable patterns, and to find inspiration where no one else is looking. So take the challenge. Try on these perspectives, and I guarantee you'll start seeing the world, your world, in ways you never thought possible. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey as eye-opening as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. Until next time, keep thinking differently, and who knows, you might just spot what everyone else is missing.